You know the phrase, you can have too much of a good thing, right? Everyone does. Well, everyone except for the developers behind the following video game series. These are the people who heard that maxim and took it not as a warning, but as a challenge. The following series may not be the best-selling or most critically acclaimed, though many of them are, but they certainly have the most to offer. From RPGs to rhythm action games, these franchises will definitely have a title for you. Now, to be clear, the total number of games for each entry on this list were tallied up from various Wikipedia and FanWiki pages and include not just all of the mainline entries, but all spin-offs, mobile titles, remasters, remakes, and collections too. And while I give exact numbers, these figures are based on our research and the counting abilities of our writer, so do allow us a little leeway. Either way, I think you'll agree, there's a lot of them. So, with that out of the way, I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are the 10 video game series with the most entries. Number 10. Dragon Quest 48. Starting back in 1986 on the NES and going under the name Dragon Warrior when it came to North America 3 years later, the original Dragon Quest initially sold so poorly that publishers Enix were convinced it was going to be a flop. If it wasn't for a number of glowing articles in the magazine Shonen Jump, it would have, and there the tale of this promising Western fantasy-inspired RPG would have ended. Once word of mouth spread, however, Dragon Quest sold like hotcakes or slime buns to fans in Japan, only to once again fail to gain a foothold in North America. Until, again, a magazine came to the rescue. This time, Nintendo Power convinced the world to embark on the quest to defeat the Dragon Lord. Such an inauspicious start would have killed off most aspiring franchises, but not Dragon Quest. Success meant a sequel the following year, and another the year after that. Now, lucky players have 11 mainline entries to get stuck into, and a whole host of spin-offs too. These spin-offs include the Pokemon-adjacent Dragon Quest Monster series, which sees players capturing, caring for, and battling series staple monsters, and the roguelike Mystery Dungeon games, which feature characters from the series. After all that, Dragon Quest is now Japan's second most successful gaming franchise. Number 9. Resident Evil 50. Unlike our previous entry, Resident Evil hit it out of the park with their very first swing. The first game, Resident Evil, or Biohazard if you want to get original Japanese about this, was a commercial and critical success, topping the charts and becoming the top-selling PlayStation game of its time. After success like that, the sequels were a no-brainer. Do you get it? Because of the zombies. Yeah? Alright, I'll show myself out. These sequels weren't just popular, they changed the face of gaming forever. The original Resident Evil was the first game to be categorized as a survival horror. Nemesis introduced the world to one of the first and most terrifying unkillable stalker enemies, and Resident Evil 4 helped to redefine the third-person shooter genre. While some of the main entries haven't gone over as well with fans, looking at you, Resident Evil 6. Hang on, no, I won't stand for this slander. This is Ben here, going off script. The Resident Evil 6 is the best Resident Evil game of all time, and I will fight any of you who say otherwise. You ride a motorcycle through a helicopter in slow motion. Sorry. This is a series that has never been afraid to reinvent itself. As a result, what started as a blocky, fixed-camera scarefest evolved into third-person action shooters and then transformed itself again into high-def, first-person scarefests. And that's just the mainline games. Spin-offs include light gun shooters, multiplayer shootouts, and more mobile ports than you can shake a shotgun at. It might stumble along the way, but this is one zombie series that won't stay dead. Number 8. Call of Duty 51. You'd think more game series with annual releases would find themselves on this list somewhere, but most simply haven't been around long enough. Call of Duty, despite only gracing the world with its own particular brand of fast-paced shooting and occasional war crimes since 2003, has all but dominated the gaming landscape over the past 2 decades. Call of Duty games haven't missed a year since 2004, and even so, that only gives us 20 mainline entries. The other 31 come from the crazy number of mobile titles that have released alongside them, as well as the fact that Warzone and Warzone 2.0 were released as their own standalone, free-to-play games. Ever since the release of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, these games have topped the sales charts. Even the ones that so-called hardcore fans hated outsold the competition by miles. With over 400 million units sold, Call of Duty holds the Guinness World Record as the best-selling first-person shooter video game series. With so many options to choose from, and you can even play on the BlackBerry if you have one laying around, you can rest assured that there will always be plenty of angry 13-year-olds to swear at you and say rude things about your mum, no matter what device you're on. Number 7. Kirby 74. If you include updated re-releases, remasters, and remakes, the Kirby series consists of an amazing 74 games. Not bad for a little pink blob who was originally only designed as a placeholder sprite while the artists worked on the real design. But his simple looks charmed the developers so much that he stayed, and judging by the sheer number of games he starred in, he clearly captured the hearts of the gaming public too. Starting out humbly in the 2D monochromatic platformer Kirby's Dream Land on the Game Boy in 1992, a title for first-time gamers in which players guided an all-white Kirby through 5 levels to take back the food and sparkling stars King Dedede stole, this little pink buffball since went on to star in racing, rhythm action, and sports games. He's even a remarkably capable fighter, and while not as tough as some of his competitors, in the right hands he can blow them all away. With Kirby's ability to consume and copy enemies and other characters' abilities, the surprise is not that Kirby has starred in a lot of games already, but that he hasn't starred in more. Where's my swashbuckling pirate adventure cooking sim or painstakingly in-depth hedge fund manager sim? Huh? The possibilities are endless, Nintendo, please. Number 6. Megami Tensei 97. You may know this series better as Shin Megami Tensei or Tensei, depending on how you want to say it. Or say it. And that's probably due to the fact that the original Megami Tensei games have never been released outside of Japan. Fan translations are available for those truly desperate to see what they've been missing out on, but nothing official exists. The Shin Megami Tensei series is something of a spin-off / remake / reimagining of the original series, but again, these weren't released outside of Japan until the 5th game, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, came out. Including the originals, that's a total of 8 games that had never made it to the US or Europe. Still, while the original series may not have sold that well outside its home country, the brand is well recognized. And why is that? Because of yet another spin-off, a little franchise by the name of Persona. Persona, a series in which the player works through the trials of being a high school student by day and slays monsters and the manifestations of NPCs' darkest desires by night, may be the most popular, but it's not the only Megami Tensei spin-off. There's also the Last Bible, Majin Tensei, Devil Summoner, and Devil Children series, as well as an absurd number of mobile spin-offs. Seeing as just one can take over 100 hours to complete, this is a series you might never finish. Number 5. Sonic the Hedgehog 98. The Blue Blur himself may have been envisioned as the most 90s mascot of all time, a faster, more in-your-face of Mario, very much the Poochie of the video game world, but it worked. Something about this obnoxiously lovable hedgehog appealed to gamers the world over, and despite stumbling into some very deep pitfalls along the way, Sonic has established himself as a gaming mainstay. Starting back in 1991 with a series of 2D platformers that very literally hit the ground running, Sonic achieved his goal of being a worthy challenger to Mario's reign. But, like the tortoise and the hare, the plucky plumber slowly but surely outpaced the rapid rodent. We know hedgehogs aren't really rodents, by the way, but we like our alliteration, so please let it slide. Still, Sonic didn't just lay down and die. He reinvented himself countless times and starred in a plethora of games of all different genres. 2D platformers became 3D platformers, which then became sports and fighting games and even racing titles. Quite why the fastest animal alive chose to start racing around in a car, however, we will never know. He even rekindled a friendly rivalry with Mario at the Olympic Games. And if that's not strange enough, just this year he starred in a point-and-click detective game in which Sonic himself is the murder victim. Talk about range. Number 4. Final Fantasy 116. If you thought a whopping 16 mainline entries was impressive, just you wait until you see how many prequels, sequels, sub-series and spin-offs also bear the Final Fantasy name. Starting all the way back in 1987 with the original Final Fantasy, a fantastic reception and high sales both in Japan and overseas led to sequel after sequel. In fact, while there has always been a healthy gap between main installments, re-releases, remakes and spin-offs mean that there have been multiple Final Fantasy games released every single year since its inception. The series can probably put its longevity and success down to the fact that it is constantly reinventing itself. While the main entries often deal with crystals, gods, and world-ending catastrophes, each exists as a separate story with its own unique world and characters. This creativity also extends to the brand's spin-offs, which run the gamut between turn-based strategy, tower defense, racing games, deck builders, and well, the list goes on. While some of these games exist in the same universe or follow on from one another, such as the Fabula Nova Crystallis series, many of them are their own standalone experiences. Some of them, 23 out of the 100 spin-offs to be precise, revolve entirely around raising and racing chocobos. Will we ever see a Final Fantasy? Probably not. Number 3. Mega Man 137. Another series that loves its spin-offs now? While there have only been 11 mainline Mega Man games, there have been almost 12 times as many sub-series, spin-offs and re-releases, and once again, mobile releases make up a hefty chunk of that number. Mega Man, or Rockman to our friends in Japan, started as he meant to go on. The first game in the series, released for the NES in 1987, set up a formula that would remain largely unchanged as the series went on. In essence, players control the titular Mega Man and guide him through a number of unique stages to defeat the elemental robot boss at its end and acquire a new power-up. As the stages can be tackled in any order, this opens up a layer of strategy to the game. Despite the first title flopping hard in the US, largely due to the ludicrous cover art, seriously, what the hell is going on there? Is he okay? Its sequel was a huge success, opening the floodgates wide. Alongside the main series, there is also the sequel series Mega Man X, the action-adventure shooter series Legends, the RPG series Battle Network, the action platformer series Zero, and its sequel series ZX. Wow, with so many intersecting plots and time skips, it's like playing through the inspiration for Lost. Number 2. Pokemon 148. There are almost as many Pokemon games as there are first-generation Pokemon, which is quite crazy when you think about it. Due to the series' policy of releasing 2 versions of each new foray into their monster-infested worlds, there have been a monumental 40 mainline Pokemon games, more than double the efforts of any other series on this list. While the games haven't changed since their inception, other than the jump from 2D to 3D, with players still capturing critters and challenging gym leaders on their way to battle the Elite Four, the real innovation comes from the spin-offs. Love Pokemon but hate seeing them fight all the time? Try Pokemon Snap, where the only shooting is done by you, with a camera. Maybe you prefer testing your brain with a good detective game. Detective Pikachu is on the case. Want to spice up your morning constitutional? Try Pokemon Go and catch some monsters while you exercise. There are even typing and maths games for the most desperate of teachers and parents. Truly, something for everyone. It's clear Pokemon isn't slowing down anytime soon, but with almost 150 out there already, do we need any more games about unsupervised 10-year-olds forcing animals to fight to the death? Of course we do. Number 1. Mario. Around 200. Our final entry on this list may look unassuming in his red cap and blue overalls, but in reality he is an unstoppable megalomaniac bent on monopolizing every corner of the video games market. Starting life way back in 1981 as Jumpman, Mario has gone through more iterations and tried his hand at more jobs than Barbie. From Punch-Out's referee and a verified physician in Dr. Mario to Tennis Ace's tennis coach, Mario Kart's rally driver, and Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Olympic athlete, the only thing he hasn't done is any actual plumbing. He should probably do that. The exact number of true Mario games out there is a little tricky to pin down. What exactly constitutes a true Mario game? If you want to go by any game that stars the mustachioed handyman, then Wikipedia gives the truly staggering total of 265 games. Whereas, if you prefer to count only those games with the word Mario in the title, then you still beat out the rest of the competition with a tremendous 174 games. Either way, you can't accuse this plucky plumber of sleeping on the job. But at 42 years old, Mario is still a long way from retirement. What's he gonna do next? Go to space? Oh wait, he did that years ago. My mistake.